Welcome everyone to How to Create a Digital Roadmap that supports your business growth goals from SilverTech. We're a digital agency working to redefine how businesses engage with and understand their customers. A digital roadmap is a high-level strategic document that aligns your business growth goals with digital initiatives and ensures that those initiatives deliver ROI. And in this era of heightened customer expectations, it's a critical planning tool to ensure that your company keeps pace with digital change. By outlining your planned digital projects in 12 to 18-month increments, you gain invaluable insight into the level of effort required to achieve your goals, what departments are impacted, and who the responsible parties are, and also what metrics will measure success. To get the most out of today's webinar, here's a few tips. We're going to run the initial presentation about 30 minutes. Sam and I will happily stay on the line for any questions that come up along the way, so post those in the webinar chat pane. Slides, recording, and tools will be made available after the broadcast. I plan on emailing those out as early as tomorrow. And, thank you very much for joining us today. Just a quick introduction to ourselves, in case you haven't been on one of our webinars before. My name is Ian, content strategist here at SilverTech, and I'm joined by Samantha Maltis, our principal strategist. Sam was recently the recipient of one of New Hampshire's highest honors for young professionals, the Union Leaders 40 Under 40. She's an in-demand speaker at digital marketing conferences, having most recently been featured at Digital Summit Philadelphia, and she has plenty of experience implementing digital roadmaps for clients. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks, Ian.
And then just a quick reminder of who we are. SilverTech, we're a digital marketing agency and technology company, and we've been in this space, the digital space, since 1996. We have more than 100 crew members engaged in more than 500 active projects in a variety of industries. Our goal is to redefine how organizations understand their audience and the entire customer journey. So we use intuitive design and a seamless sharing of information across these three main technology platforms, your CMS, your marketing automation, your CRM. Let's get to the agenda for today. We're going to be talking about understanding the customer experience, setting SMART goals, what you should include in a digital roadmap, and of course, how a digital roadmap can benefit your business. Sam, as I look for this poll, do you mind reading this back?
So before we dive in, let's do a quick show of hands. Does your company currently use a digital roadmap to track your digital initiatives? So there should be a poll live on your screen. If you would mind just answering that quickly for us. We'll just give it a couple seconds here so everyone can take a second and get back to us.
I don't know if you can see the results there, Sam. Here they are.
Can't. Oh, there we go. Thank you. We have lots of screens going here. All right. So we'll go ahead and close. So it looks like, as expected, since you are on this webinar with us, that the majority of you are not using a digital roadmap yet. So you've come to the right place. So we're going to walk you through the steps to get you there. And then for those that are, hopefully we give you some things that you can add to that digital roadmap to enhance your organization's overall experience.
Would you say that's quite typical response, Sam, from kind of clients that you're beginning engagements with?
I think so. I think that for the most part, a lot of folks, it's kind of like the cobbler's kids have no shoes, and so there's a lot of marketing organizations out there that are kind of struggling to put things down in writing and to really kind of plan things out, and that is what forces everyone to be reactive instead of proactive. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today and how simple a roadmap can be to get everyone aligned so that it's not a daunting task to keep updated as well, and really help you get from that reactive to proactive state.
It's one of those simple things that seems like it's been around forever,
yes.
But we haven't, many marketers haven't gone around to the implementation yet. And I think hopefully we'll show that it's quite an easy thing, and there's a great deal of value to be gained from it.
Absolutely.
So let's end the poll there. If I've closed that out correctly, and back to the presentation at hand. As I mentioned, we're going to discuss understanding the customer experience, because before you begin the process of drafting a digital roadmap, it's important to align your company around a common understanding of the customer experience. Ultimately, the key to your business growth really hinges on a positive customer experience. It may seem obvious to state, but many companies operate without a consensus of what the customer experience actually is, and it really can lock teams into silos. So the customer experience accounts for each touch point or point of interaction with your brand. Your homepage is a touch point, visit location is perhaps many touch points, and your call center perhaps another. Talk to your teams responsible for each touch point along the journey to try and collect their insights for that full understanding of the customer experience as it is today. Ideally, you'll map the customer journey for each of your personas, identifying opportunities to enrich the experience along the way. Customer journey map will help you plan for an optimized user experience, one that removes barriers and heightens usability. But better still, a customer journey map, when shared with everyone in your company, will help you get to that common consensus of what the current customer experience is and what an optimized one looks like. Sam, can you speak to the importance of an organization coming to this common understanding of what the customer experience should be, and perhaps how a customer journey map will help you get there?
Absolutely. So I think that, we have several webinars just talking about customer experience mapping. And so if anyone doesn't have a customer experience map or personas, I would highly recommend that you go take a look at our website. We have them all there across a variety of industries as well. So talking about how a customer journey map can help organizations get to a common understanding. So essentially what a journey map does is it lays out all the interactions that a customer should have with your brand in both positive and sometimes negative experiences. So then ultimately why I think that's very important is that it actually helps empower your employees to have those both positive and negative conversations, to be able to help them know where they fit within the process, all of the things that ultimately lead into messaging and marketing and how you pull those things together. So ultimately it helps everyone from the C-suite all the way down to the front line understand what they're actually moving forward towards. What are they actually trying to achieve when they're dealing with a customer, which gets into the roadmap and what is that experience for marketing.
Do you agree with our kind of assessment here that it is kind of a good pre-digital road mapping exercise to kind of get to that understanding?
I do. I think that personas, in addition to customer roadmap, both of them kind of go together in my book, are necessary to know where you're spending your time and your focus. They really help you prioritize all of those activities, and even add in some. I know a lot of times I'll be dealing with folks in the C-suite and they're very focused on a very specific business goal, right? But maybe not thinking of some other things that ultimately influence the customer journey. So for example, I have an organization that I work with where the marketing team is very focused on the holiday card every year, right? And it's really important that the holiday card goes out, but the C-suite is like, well, why are we doing that? That doesn't bring us leads. It's like, no, you know what that does? That actually enhances your brand. And it's another touch point for your brand. It's a feel-good thing. You need to make sure that you do it. And so those types of things come up all the time when you're talking about customer interaction.
And I have a feeling that your holiday card example will come up again later in our presentation.
Maybe.
A key insight here. Over the years in my research of corporate innovation, digital transformation, and service innovation, this is Brian Solis, the principal analyst at Altimeter Group. If you don't subscribe to his blog, I do highly recommend it. He's found that the most progressive organizations are prioritizing customer experience as a means of orchestrating focus and advancement. Kind of a fancier way of saying what we're saying. It's putting that customer experience first is what helps your organization ultimately grow. You agree, Sam, with that assertion?
Of course, yeah. I think Brian is very smart in this way, and I agree. It's really talking about what's best for the customer. So of course, that makes a lot of sense. With a common
consensus around the customer experience, it's time to start planning your digital projects. But there's one more step to keep in mind before you commit your efforts to a digital roadmap. You need to establish a framework to measure and optimize performance. Now, our partners at HubSpot advocate the SMART methodology. I'm sure you've heard of that. We'll review that in detail now. And they've created several tools, too, which I can share at the conclusion of the presentation in our follow-up. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And this approach helps summarize your ultimate marketing goals, calculate your greatest marketing needs, and set deadlines for meeting your annual, quarterly, monthly goals, all of which you'll document in your digital roadmap. So the S for SMART is for specific. When creating a goal, you want it to be as short, crisp, and specific as possible. Having a good marketing year isn't a reflection of what your company actually accomplished. Imagine that your boss is about to leave for vacation. You have 90 seconds to explain, quickly what next year's goal is. What are you going to tell them? It concisely explains your plans. Sam, can you speak to the value of setting these specific goals and any examples you could share?
Yes. So when we start talking about roadmaps in general, we actually start with business goals and then what kind of marketing goals need to happen to support those business goals. And we get down into very specific detail, like we need to increase the number of leads by 30% or by a certain number to be able to understand that we're going to get this much more in revenue to meet this business goal of a 15% growth, right? So those are the types of things that you need to get to be able to get to that specific goal.
Mm-hmm. And the M in SMART is for measurable. Oftentimes companies will say they want to increase social media following. Well, that's a goal. It's not an actual trackable goal. So if you start the new year with 100 followers and you gain one follower to make it 101, technically you've met that goal. But if you switch that goal to read, we want to increase social media following by 25%, suddenly you can measure your progress toward that goal. So, Sam, how important is it for your digital roadmap to be successful to have measurable goals in place?
If they're not measurable, you didn't achieve anything.
Right, yeah.
That's the simplest thing. If they're not measured, if you don't know what you're doing, you did not achieve anything, no matter how hard you worked all year.
And that, I think, is often the plight of many a marketing department out there. That it's hard to, kind of set yourself up for success ahead of time at the onset of your digital road mapping by making sure you have measurable goals in place.
Yes.
And then also, the A is for attainable. While having history-breaking goals are beneficial, and HubSpot is all about breaking records, they say. And they give this great example here. If your company history is generating an average of 10 leads per month, jumping to 2,000 leads in the following month is really a drastic change. It's not something that you could actually accomplish. So how do you set attainable goals, Sam?
That's a great question. I think that percentages are always a great place to start. I think that you kind of have a gut feeling anyway as well in terms of what you can actually achieve. The hardest thing though in setting attainable goals is you need to get a baseline. So if you're one of those organizations listening today that you don't even have a baseline, I would actually recommend that you start that baseline first and say, all right, here's our goal. Our goal is to set a baseline. When we have a baseline by this time, so you actually have to say we will achieve a baseline by X date, then we will work to achieve it, and then we're going to increase it by X by doing these things. The percentages are always a great place to do it. Sometimes those attainable goals get a little shifted based on what the overall business goals are, but then it'll give you, at least when you have the baselines though, you can figure out what it's going to take to get you to that ultimate goal once you have that math kind of formula in place, and we can talk about that a little bit too.
I think ultimately we're advocating for marketing departments to become more data-driven, to look past performance of your content or any of your marketing activities, and use that data to make measured and attainable goals, as we're saying here. Jumping to the 2,000 leads per month, as we said before, if there's no indication in your past history that that's even possible, you wouldn't even attempt it.
No. And don't get us wrong either. So a lot of people say, oh, this is a branding activity. This is an awareness activity. And then it's really hard to be able to measure those things. That is very true. And we understand that as well. But if there is something that you can do, if there is something that you can measure, absolutely do that. That's I think that goes without saying. I know I've worked with tourism. I've worked with tourism organizations. And for example, they send out thousands of brochures every year, right? So they have their online versions, and then they also have their brochures as well. And so those brochures kind of go into the abyss, and you're not really sure if they're tracking or not. I mean, adding things like vanity URLs, where you can at least track how many people come back and actually type in that specific URL. Those types of things help out tremendously. So no, it's not everyone who received one of those, but at least then you can start to figure out a conversion on how many people are actually going and digesting that information, at least that specific piece of it.
Very good. And the R in SMART is for relevant. So why have a goal if it doesn't even matter? Say you're a teddy bear business that at a maximum can only sell 1,000 teddy bears a month. In this situation, your goal shouldn't be likely to increase production of teddy bears from 1,000 to 5,000 per month. Well, it's great if you have more product. If you don't have the distributors for your product, why bother? Your goal should be something more along the lines of increased distribution channels by X%. Sam, I think this also speaks to the fact that SMART goals, it's not like a one size fits all. Our template, you can customize and change it, but it's not going to have the same goals for everybody. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so everybody's business is a little bit different. And I think it's really interesting to look at this because if someone were to come to me and say, we need to increase our sales by X, then the first thing that I would go to is, we need to increase production, we need to increase sales, and then increase distribution. So I think goals get easily conflated. So increasing sales and distribution channels, those are two very different things. So it goes back to being specific as well.
Sure.
So saying, yes, we need to make sure that these are attainable but specific. Basically, they have to be the full word.
Right. And closing out SMART, your goals have to be time-bound, and this is critical to the digital roadmap. So while having all your aforementioned goals helps develop a solid goal, you'll need to ensure that you have a timeline for meeting the goal. Going back to the teddy bear example, if you decide your goal is to increase distribution channels, you need to know when you will accomplish this in order to know when to start working on the secondary goal of actually producing those teddy bears. Sam, of all the SMART goals, I do think this one seems most tied to the digital roadmap. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, yes. All the tasks within the roadmap, as we're about to show, do have a date and a deliverable associated with it, or at least a date of when there will be an update. So we're going to go through that in a little bit as well. I think people get very scared about time bound, even assigning some of these things, because they don't know, right? And so I think there is a little bit of going out on a limb with SMART goals, holding yourself accountable to that. Obviously, you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but I think it's important to have that conversation with the folks that you're reporting to say, you know what, I have no idea what this is, and I'm going to be completely honest about that.
Sure.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish this baseline, and I'm going to really shoot to hit it by here. If we don't hit it by here, then we're going to go back and we're going to reassess, and we're going to continue to try and evolve. That can be a scary conversation to have, especially when you say, I'm going to do something in 3 months and you don't achieve it. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you continue to do that. But then just know that maybe you need 5 months, or maybe you need 6 months. You need a little bit more time to actually achieve your goal, but you absolutely do. You need to put time to it, because otherwise you can say, I need to increase my distribution by 1,000, but I could do that over the course of my lifetime. So obviously that's an extreme example, but I think it gives you a lot more credibility when you're actually putting a goal together with all of these different things in place, regardless of whether or not you achieve them. When you set expectations ahead of time, I think that goes a long way for marketers in general.
Yeah, and we'll speak to this too, but I think too, with the digital roadmap, if you don't hit that goal and it's 3 months later and it's looking more like a 5 month, you can actually show that you've been doing the work and you've been moving towards that.
Yes.
It is a roadmap. You're moving forward and you can track and show that progress, which I think is key.
Definitely.
Key takeaway then from our partners at HubSpot: SMART goals are concrete targets that you can easily aim for, realistic, quantifiable, and focused, so you know exactly how to accomplish them. Again, it's you'll have your own version of the SMART goals, but everyone should have them.
Yes.
So as we stated earlier, the ultimate goal of your digital roadmap is to align your business growth goals with digital initiatives and ensure that those initiatives deliver ROI. Our SMART marketing goals will go a long way toward ensuring that your digital initiatives do, in fact, deliver that ROI, and the roadmap will help us take the efforts further by giving your company a full framework to guide technology investments and keep your stakeholders informed of your digital strategy. The opening page or sheet of your digital roadmap should outline business objectives, such as increasing brand awareness or increasing website conversions. You should then tie a digital initiative, that's a tough one to say fast, to each objective and outline the metrics for success as identified in your SMART marketing goals. It's also important in the opening page of a digital roadmap to include budget and time frame related to each initiative. Sam, you created many roadmaps for clients. Is there anything else you'd like to include in the opening kind of statement of your roadmap?
Yes. So anything that is big. So I have a lot of clients that do trade shows in addition to their digital efforts. And so trade show integration with digital is something that sometimes gets missed. Very, very important, and also something to really plan for in advance. So having this, as you can see, is broken down by quarter. So anything that is kind of a bigger initiative that happens, this is really where you're going to start to be proactive. This is where you're going to start to plan. And I mentioned tourism earlier. It always surprises me, but I'm guilty of it too. Every year the fall campaign comes around, and we're located here in New Hampshire, so there's fall foliage. And every year it's kind of a surprise. We have to put a fall foliage campaign together. And really, we can be planning for that any time, right? We
Right.
know that that's something that happens every year. It's not like we skip fall. So those are the types of things that you can actually start to plan out, that we need to start the fall foliage campaign in Q2, so then we're actually ready for it to go in Q3. Those types of things are always good to include here. Anything that will help you be proactive.
Excellent. And the digital roadmaps that we create for clients are typically broken down by month. We'll get into more detail in the next slides and cover 12 to 18 months. We identify tasks related to each category, the owner of each task, and the estimated time, as we've spoken to, it will take to complete each task. Though each roadmap is unique, we typically include the following categories. Account management. In this section, we include check-in meetings and other operations-related tasks, such as contact database management or reporting updates. This area covers activities meant to ensure that the initiatives remain on track. The owners of these tasks are typically marketing coordinators, account managers, project managers. Sam, do you include internal and external task owners here, and how much detail do you like to include?
This plan is meant to be completely comprehensive of anyone who's doing any marketing or any kind of touch point into marketing. So, for example, content owners may be outside of marketing, and you may have several agencies that are involved in helping you market. Everything goes here.
Yep.
So, thinking of account in terms of the broader marketing team, any type of, so in this one we have weekly check-in meetings. There may be one-on-ones that happen. There may be other stakeholder meetings that happen. Anything that anyone who touches marketing should have access to this, should be included in this. So again, you can be proactive instead of reactive and really think through some of the reuse of your campaigns and your content and different initiatives that you have.
Excellent. The next section we typically include is tracking. Here we include tasks related to tracking, such as dashboard optimization, goal setting. We also include tasks related to analytics and recommendations related to analytics. So many of the tasks here are related to Google Analytics, Tag Manager, Google Data Studio, and typically these tasks are managed by a digital strategist on the agency side or a digital marketing specialist on the client side. Sam, how much effort should be put into this area of your roadmap? Is this a set and forget?
No.
Setup.
It is not. So I think a lot of folks, when they actually put together their roadmaps or their marketing plans, tracking is not even included. It's kind of an afterthought. We make it the first thing that shows up, and the reason for that is so that the baseline, you're measuring your goals, you continue to show progress, right? So tracking is the first thing that we look at, and another thing that's important to note is in that account management piece, so all those meetings, this document is reviewed by everyone every single time. So anytime there's a new campaign that goes live, a new landing page that goes live, the task associated with tracking that is included here, an owner assigned to it, hours estimated against it with a deadline of when it needs to happen. So there is not an opportunity for any of the campaigns to go untracked or to have anything. So basically, that's the biggest thing, things that we're looking at. So tracking, very, very important. Should be the number one thing on your roadmap so that you can get to the point where you have those measurable deliverables towards SMART goals.
I think you might find that once you have your initial dashboard set up, that maybe it's less time bound in future quarters.
Right.
But you're always going to be kind of pruning and optimizing what you're looking at, and you'll have different questions too, I think.
Yes.
The next section is the website. We often include the website because it really, for many, it's the largest digital asset, so it makes sense to have its own section. And if your plan is to implement personalization in the near future, for example, here's where you would track tasks necessary to mapping out a timeline, establishing requirements, and identifying necessary integrations. Your website really should be always evolving, so even if you've just launched a brand new site, it's already time to start putting up tasks here for planning for future states and your content management system, CMS, your that website software updates. Sam, any other reasons you like to include a website and website-related tasks here in the digital roadmap?
It's interesting that this right now, obviously, just for the purposes of demonstration, has only 4 lines. Mostly the roadmaps that I do have no less than 15 or 20. And those are all things that are continually evolving on the site. And so I think that brings up a couple different things. You mentioned pruning in terms of your tracking. It's pruning in terms of your website. You extend the value of your website when you're continually working on it, continually adding to it. And so this allows you, I think, for folks who marketing may not own the website, maybe you're relying on other folks, This is very, very helpful in terms of setting those priorities for the site and assigning hours, assigning deadlines to it, and seeing when those tasks can be accomplished so that you can be more proactive in terms of what campaigns you have running and the tracking and things like that. So very important for teams who may be split in ownership of the website, but even within your own team, making sure that the website is not something that's forgotten, but evergreen in terms of working through. It's positive.
And I'm thinking too, if the roadmap is 18 months, typically you're going to have a big website update at least every 2 to 5 years.
At least technology-wise, yeah.
There's going to be no opportunity really for the website to not be on there, I don't think.
That's actually a really good point in terms of the things that you should include in that on that first page that plans out by quarters. When your CMS is planning on releasing a major update and you need to upgrade your website, that's something that makes a lot of sense to put in that website section, is that this particular CMS is going to have an update in November. We already need to start planning for that.
Yeah, and you can, it's likely that it will have an update. I think
All
many
of
of the
them
major
do.
Ones now are updating every 12 months. So
Yes.
if nothing else, you should be seeing what is included in that update and, reviewing that.
Right.
So important to have.
Yes.
Then we get into campaigns and events, and this is often the largest section of our digital roadmaps. This includes both traditional and digital marketing campaigns. Sam mentioned the trade show, and you'll have digital efforts revolving around that trade show too. So you can see the crossover there, and then the tasks associated with each. We recommend identifying all campaign-related tasks all the way down to the granular level. So it might be an expansive area, but we find it's helpful to the stakeholders outside of the marketing department to really gain an understanding of the immense level of effort that's behind each campaign and each initiative. Sam, can you speak to this last point? Have you worked with any clients that can attest to this, like that light bulbs have gone off in stakeholders' heads when, that's what they need this time and they need these resources?
I think it's so each campaign, I think a lot of times people ask, oh, well, we should just run a campaign for example, a new checking account, right?
Yeah.
That's a very simple ask, but then you start kind of breaking down, all right, well, what's included in this campaign? Are we going to have mailers? Are we going to have giveaways? Are we going to have landing pages? Are we going, like, all of those different things? So when you start to break down, and in many cases we do for campaigns, because there's a task and a person associated with a deadline and predecessors and successors, so they're all included in here. It's eye-opening for folks, I think, who are not involved in day-to-day to see all the different steps to execute on a campaign and then how long it takes. That's another reason why we include hours here, how long it takes to get those campaigns up and running. When everyone reviews the roadmap and agrees, yeah, that's how long that actually takes, then it's okay, well, maybe we don't need this really ancillary campaign over here, and maybe we can double down efforts here instead. It goes a long way in terms of prioritization, which I think is very helpful for marketing teams just in general to communicate.
And I think we're speaking to the point that it's helpful to show to your external stakeholders. For those of you who haven't yet created a digital roadmap, I think once you actually map it out yourself, all of the things that you actually do for a campaign, it'll be quite eye-opening for yourself.
Yes, little things, little tiny things.
So many things involved.
Yes.
And that gets us to content and design. And in this section, we include all of the content necessary to support your website, campaigns, and social media promotion. Even if you outsource content or design, as we've spoken to several times now, it's helpful to identify tasks and task owners. It'll help you meet campaign deadlines and keep your initiatives on track. Sam, we're devoting an entire webinar in this series later on to content and content strategy, but could you quickly speak to content's role in any digital transformation project, a website redesign, or any system upgrade, and why it's so important to include in a roadmap?
Yeah, so, and you may notice too that it's not included with the campaigns, right? I think a lot of times people do put it in with the campaigns, and that's completely fine, but we have a philosophy that content needs to be outside of campaigns, mostly for content reuse.
Sure.
So basically what is coming for your or the ideas for your content come from your personas ultimately, your journey maps ultimately, and what that ideal experience is for your customers or your members in the case of credit unions. But what different types of things are going to help answer questions or move folks along or provide them with an excellent experience. And that is outside of any channel, right?
Sure.
So the content and the design of it is really thinking about, okay, let me answer these questions, then let me figure out where I'm going to put it and how I'm going to distribute that and what is the best channel for that. So in terms of digital transformation and why it's important to include it in your roadmap, I think when you start to use your content in a whole bunch of different ways, in the way that I've just described, that does help facilitate that transformation, because a lot of times content does fall into those silos. It does fall into campaign silos, and you really want to break those down. You really want to make sure that you're using content in a whole bunch of different ways, and then and ultimately that's what this roadmap is supposed to provide.
Excellent. Well, let's now wrap up our presentation today by going quickly into how a digital roadmap can benefit your business. Likely, if you've gotten this far and created your digital roadmap, you'll already have seen great business value in the creation process. There's tremendous value in coming to a common understanding of the customer experience, we mentioned at the outset. You'll unite your entire organization and be able to identify areas of improvement. There's also great value in adopting a smart marketing methodology, as we shared earlier. When goals are realistic, quantifiable, and focused, you know what it will take to accomplish them. And once you do start to use your digital roadmap, however, you'll start to notice the following business benefits. And we've spoken to this one quite a bit. And you will improve communication with stakeholders. Traditionally, marketing departments have been viewed as cost centers and not as drivers of revenue. However, as organizations have embraced digital transformation and oriented themselves toward a digital-first customer experience, digital initiatives are now seen as critical to business growth. And I said digital initiatives correctly that time. The digital roadmap helps give stakeholders increased oversight into what's happening in the marketing department and clearly communicates goals and timelines. Sam, we touched upon this, but any further thoughts on how a roadmap can help you go from that cost center to that revenue driver?
It's all about perception and tracking through goals. And so once you set that baseline and then drive towards something and then can attach the goals that you're creating or that you have achieved into revenue, that is where you can say you spent this much in marketing, and this is what marketing drove, and we can prove it through this. That's how that process happens. And I think everyone is ultimately trying to get there. I know that there's a lot of different data silos that exist, so I'll kind of take a tangent for a minute and just talk about the fact that in the journey to become a revenue driver as opposed to a cost center, there's normally kind of a progression of things that you can track. And so, and as you start to break down silos and as you start to get things into a data warehouse, for example. So if you don't have a single source of data, track as far as you possibly can and then make assumptions after that. So for example, if we're talking banks right now, it would be, we had this many leads come into our mortgage application. That's fine. You get to that point, that's fine. And you can assume that you close how many of those, a percentage of those, which closes how much in business, right? So you can make assumptions. If you're the one who's driving that journey, you'll, again, back to credibility of marketing, you'll go a lot further that in setting the tone of the conversation that way than other potentials. And then as you can connect systems and connect what the actual close rate is into that system, then you're into, like, that's really ultimate. That's
where
gold.
You want to be.
Yeah, that's gold.
I think you'll find that you'll also save time and reduce marketing costs. Though there's a lot of upfront work to create a digital roadmap, ultimately you find that tracking timelines, deliverables, and task owners will prevent digital initiatives from going over budget. It's likely that you also find opportunities along the way to reduce wasted costs. So much marketing time and cost is just wasted on unnecessary or duplicate efforts, really. The roadmap keeps all parties kind of tasked and on track with full visibility into the overall goals. Sam, how does a roadmap help keep external partners on track?
Well, you know what? Oh, external partners. So it helps with priorities for sure. Especially when you're tracking back to SMART goals, you know what's working and what's not working. And you know about how long to let things run before say, oh, well, we should turn this off and move this in another direction. And internally as well, if you're assigning hours to something internally, you can also help set your priorities internally too. So you can say, yes, it's okay for this person to dedicate 2 hours to this because we get ROI on investment. But especially when it comes to external partners, I mean, then it becomes a really simple math exercise in terms of the work that this agency is doing is driving this much in revenue for our business, right? That's the ultimate goal. So it really helps to keep not just external partners, external and internal, on track, all moving together in the same direction.
And I think that's why we like to share and use these digital roadmaps with our clients to show the value and to keep everyone on track.
Yes.
Digital roadmap will also help you evaluate digital channels. Often companies jump into new digital channels because maybe you think your audience is there or you know your competitors are there. This can waste time and effort into pursuing unprofitable channels. The roadmap keeps you on track and helps you evaluate with that smart methodology what channels will actually work. Sam, how do you know when it's time to enter a digital channel? How does the roadmap help?
Well, I think, so the first step before you even get to roadmap, as we said several times, is personas and journey management, right? So understanding what that ideal online experience is, that will lend itself very nicely into where your audiences are and evaluating that. So I think that that's kind of the first step into that. And then as you start to develop SMART goals for those channels and looking at whether or not your audience is there and what kind of return on investment you can start to expect, that's where you can say, yes, this is working, or no, it's not. I would normally say, as marketers, you get a pretty good feel in terms of what channels you need to be in and what kind of appetite your organization has for being innovative versus maybe a little bit more conservative too. So if you're in one of those innovative organizations, you may go out after everybody, but you also have the resources to be able to do that, and that's great. Test them and kill them though if they're not working.
Sure.
And the same, if you're a little more conservative, wait and see what are your competitors doing. One thing that we haven't talked about that is a part of this is also a competitive analysis.
Sure. Yep.
So looking at what your competitors are doing and maybe kind of being more laggard in that and just saying, oh yeah, well these people are here and this is what they're doing and it seems to be working for them. Maybe we can try it in this way for us. That's completely fine. Everyone does it. That is ultimately the key in terms of prioritizing though. But if you're already thin in terms of time and hours, and you know if you are because you're assigning hours to all of your tasks and what needs to be accomplished within a certain amount of time, don't worry about it as long as you can prove your ROI, or you can then kind of maybe reallocate some hours into trying new things as opposed to some of the other things as you get more efficient at completing your roadmap. Tasks on your roadmap, actually.
The roadmap will also help you optimize campaign performance. It's a living document and it should be updated continuously. It allows opportunity to evaluate and improve each initiative as it's happening. Sam, how often do you update your roadmaps?
Every time the team talks.
Every time the team talks.
Every time the team talks. And it could be pieces or parts of the team. But if you and I are having a conversation, that gets updated. If I'm talking with our clients, those get updated. That roadmap gets updated every single time the team has any type of conversation, because if we're not changing something on the roadmap, that means that we're stagnant. We didn't complete something and we're not looking to add more things in. So that needs to be updated every time.
Are you opening up your roadmaps every morning? Is it email roadmaps and what's the order of
it's a little
importance?
a little crazy.
Yeah. Roadmaps, of course, will help you improve the customer experience. As we discussed earlier, the key to really success in this era of digital transformation is a focus on the customer experience. So with that consensus on what the experience should be, Digital Roadmap will ensure that everyone responsible for a customer experience touchpoint has the tools and authority they need to help improve the experience. Thinking back to our discussion, Sam, on understanding the customer experience, could you help us here by just kind of helping to reiterate the role the Digital Roadmap plays here? Yeah,
so the Digital Roadmap is ultimately going to outline for you the ideal customer experience with your brand. And I think we've probably hit that to death at this point, but I think it can't be understated. How I interact with you, or just thinking about going to the bank or thinking about going to get coffee. That's the first step of someone's customer experience with you, because I have lots of choices and decisions. There's a lot of other businesses out there that do what everyone is here to do. So thinking through that all the way through how I interact with your frontline staff, or even after the case, reflecting on how my experience went in the follow-up, if it's applicable for how that experience went, what are those different touch pieces? And I think that's where marketing plays the most valuable role, is because they are thinking about things all the way through that, from a branch or store design all the way through what that follow-up email communication looks like, or what that continual touch point communication looks like. That's why I think the customer experience, the customer journey maps are so necessary for marketing to do before the roadmap happens.
Yep, fully agree. Let's share a key takeaway then from marketing tech. Remember that improving your digital delivery is a continual process, and finding the best model for your organization will require some experimentation. Rest assured, though, that the effort you put into this will be worth the benefits realized from accelerating digital innovation at your organization.
Yes.
Sam, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I think this is always my final thought, but if you do anything,
Right.
just do something,
Yeah.
right? So you don't have to do a full-on roadmap if you're not ready yet. You're not ready. If you can't do a customer experience for every single one of your types of personas, just do something, and it will overall improve your marketing and your return on investment and your deliverables.
It just helps you look a little further ahead, I think, and just be strategic about how you spend your time in your department.
Keep moving forward.
So as we wrap this up, just share a final thought myself. As digital initiatives become more important to how companies drive revenue, digital roadmaps are essential to ensure success. Every marketing department operating in 2018 should have a detailed roadmap that not only drives initiatives by tracking timeline, budget, and goals, but communicates the value the marketing department has in this age of digital transformation. At this point, I'll just check in to see if any questions came through. It looks like there are none at this point, and I think we have kept you a few minutes over what we had set up front. So just a reminder, I will be following up with an email. You'll have access to the video presentation. You'll have access to our digital roadmap template, and you should see those emails in your inbox as early as tomorrow. We would also love to connect for a 30-minute strategy session where we could talk about digital roadmaps, how you can use them on a one-to-one basis. You can certainly feel free to respond back to that email if you would like to set something up. We'd love the opportunity to discuss these further. Sam, any final thoughts?
No, that's it. Thank you everyone for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you.